Aloha, it is Dave Lawrence, and I am here on Marine Corps Base, Hawaii, in Kaneohe Bay, and it's my second chance getting to talk with actor and musician Gary Sinise, who is here with his Lieutenant Dan Band doing a couple more shows for the troops. A big aloha and mahalo. Thanks for taking some time, brother.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you again. The Lieutenant Dan Band for the Common Good, the film. I'm curious about. The trailer looks really cool, and as a fan of the band, I'm just like, what was the concept? How did it get started?
Well, that was actually it was finished a couple of years ago. So the movie's been out for a while. It's on DVD. It's called Lieutenant Dan Band for the Common Good. Most of it was made in 2008, 2009, and then they put it out in 2010. But a buddy of mine asked me if he could follow what I do out here with the troops and the military and the charities and the visits to the bases and that kind of thing, and record some of it. And took him to said he could come to one concert, and after that he was hooked and just kept asking me to come. And so over about 18 months period, he recorded a lot of different things, including just a trip that I took to Iraq to visit troops over there. I went there without the band, and
just sort of on your own to greet people. And
before I started taking the band on tours, I would just go out and say hi and shake hands and take pictures and sign autographs and visit with the troops and just tell them thank you and make sure they knew that they were appreciated, and I wanted to go let them know that. So I would go out, and I probably did 5 or 6 of those handshake tours before I actually took the band out. In 2003, I think I did 5 or 6 handshake tours alone in that year, and then 2004, I asked the USO if they would let me take the band. I did. We went to Korea and Singapore and down to Diego Garcia, and I did a tour there, and then I just kept doing tours and shows, and then I got my television show, CSI New York, and I couldn't go overseas, so I set up a whole series of domestic shows, because I can fly to a base in the States on Friday or Saturday, play that night, and fly back.
And be back on the set for CSI.
Back on the set on Monday, yeah, and we've been doing that now for years, and probably been I couldn't tell you how many bases we've been to, but dozens and dozens of bases and hundreds of shows.
And the other thing about it, which we were talking about on the way up here today, was there's a mix of gigs in there that are not just military gigs too, right? I saw on the website there are a couple shows coming up. Like, how many shows are not military ones that you blend in, and what are they? Are they corporate gigs? Are they in bars and clubs?
I think I'm doing about 52 shows this year, and I think about 5 of them actually pay some money. The rest of them are all charity or USO or break even or something like that. Clearly I make my living in another way. I'm not writing songs and recording albums and going out and playing to promote those records or anything. The playing and the performing is really, it's designed to support people. And I make my living as an actor, and on the weekends I go out and do a lot of this charity shows, and many of the shows are USO related. But we're doing 13 USO shows this year. We did 16 last year, but I'm doing over 50 shows. So there's a lot of other military charities and the occasional corporate gig in there that actually pays some money, and then most of it is. And then we're doing 10 home building concerts, that's a complete donation. So I'll donate the cost of the band. I'll donate all the production costs associated with putting on the stage and the lights and everything like that. And we're doing that 10 times this year to raise money to build specially designed smart homes with smart technology in them for very, very severely wounded warriors. And we're doing that 11 times this year. We've already built 2 or 3 houses, and we're doing that. And we do that through my foundation, the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Yeah, I was taking a look at that, Gary, SiniseFoundation.org if you go online. And those houses, I was talking with Danny Gottlieb, and he was mentioning that was one of the things that it really impressed him about what you guys have been up to. Talk a little bit more about that. Are those in one particular area? Where are those houses going to go up?
They're all around the country. I've done press now for 2 concerts that we have coming up within the next month. Within March, we do our first concert this year in Temecula, California. And for triple amputee Juan Dominguez, he's a Marine who wants to live there. And then in Martinsville, Virginia, there's another triple amputee there named J.B. Curran's a Marine. And his home is going to be in Ararat, Virginia. That's where he hails from. He wants his home there, so we purchase the land. We get it built for him. We raise all the money. And what I do, I come in with a concert, and that raises the awareness of the community and everybody around him, and we raise money and we raise awareness, and we celebrate the local hero.
In so many ways, that's how I looked at the film, as a great way, and I wonder if it's a bonding thing. You say, the filmmaker wanted to come and take a look and just shoot a show, and he kind of got hooked on what you were doing. Is it sort of the film to me is a great way, a vehicle, if you will, of helping to introduce what you're doing to other people and become kind of a rallying point for other people who have that same passion to maybe show some sort of gratitude for the troops?
I think he did an excellent job with the movie. The movie's very touching, and I think if anything, it shows you how many, you get to meet a lot of these people that I interact with throughout the year who are doing good things out there and in support of the troops. Not only do I visit the troops and you see them and what the concerts do, to raise their morale or boost their spirits or whatever, but you also meet a lot of different individuals through the film that I've come in contact with over the years who want to try to do good things out there in support of our troops. So the movie, if you go to lieutenantdanbanmovie.com, you can order that. You can look it up online, Lieutenant Dan Band for the Common Good, and you can see get a little taste of what we do out there throughout the year.
John Voight, Robert Duvall, they came to it because of a shared passion.
Well, they're friends of mine. They're both friends of mine, and some of the other folks that are interviewed in the movie are friends of mine, and we're at different events that I might have been at, and the filmmaker interviewed them and talked to them.
Along the way, has it ever occurred to you, or has the act of your filmmaking and your acting work, playing tough guys, playing these challenging roles, and acting itself is very discipline-oriented, it takes long days, it's a lot involved. Has it ever, playing this sort of roles, given you some sort of additional perspective on the pressures or stresses involved with the troops? Has it given you maybe an extra level of getting to understand them?
I think just being around them it gives me the best understanding. It's like, when I've played different characters, I try to go and find out what that person's been through, or what that, if I'm creating a character from scratch who has a particular job or comes from a particular kind of world, I try to go there and see, firsthand what's going on. And having been involved with the military veterans years ago, prior to like Forrest Gump or something like that, I interacted with a lot of Vietnam veterans before I actually played one in that movie. But what I didn't know much about was the disability, the injury, the double amputation of a character like Lieutenant Dan. So I did some research on that, and now, I've been around the military so much that I feel like I, have a great understanding and appreciation for what military life is like. And while I get to come and go, and I don't stay in the military, I know enough about it, having interacted with so many people, that I can go out there and talk about it on television and radio and try to help the average American who might not have any connection with somebody in the military understand what the military life might be like, and why we should be so grateful and appreciative of the quality of the people that we have serving our country.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I had that feeling that some sort of the exposure, the discipline, just because I just think about those roles. But that was a good explanation. There's a great photograph of you when you mentioned GarySiniseFoundation.org, and I do encourage people to go there. There's a lot of great pictures there. There's one you're suited up with these airmen next to you, and you're smiling. You're standing with these two guys, and it's like looks like you just got off of a jet or something like that. What was that photo shoot for?
Yeah, that was right after I got off of an F-16. They took me up, and I've done some pretty cool things. There's no question about it. And that was right. I was standing there smiling and looking like I'd survived, but what was really going inside is I wanted to pass out at that moment because it shook me up a bit, that ride.
How many times have you gotten to go up in jets like that?
Well, once in an F-16, but I just recently in June I did a U-2 flight, which is it goes to 71,000 feet.
The vintage spy plane.
Yeah.
Gary Powers, is that the?
That's the one. Yeah, and I did a flight. At one point, you have a. There's only one seat in the plane, but on the training planes there's two.
Yeah, I was going to say I couldn't see. You're not flying it. You're not behind the wheel. Someone is flying you.
The second seat is about 18 inches higher than the first seat because you're sitting behind the pilot. He's down here and I'm up here. So at one point, I was the highest guy in the Earth's atmosphere at that moment because I was above the pilot, and so I was the highest guy in the world. What's that mean?
We'll leave that one at that. As a final note before I wrap it up with you, you have gotten to meet a lot of people. We mentioned some of the celebrities who were in that film who showing their support for the troops too. In terms of a biggest professional hero that you've ever met, in terms of your acting or professional career who has had an influence on you, who would that person be? Someone who you really, really admired and looked up to, and maybe it wasn't for their work, maybe it was for how they carried themselves as a person, but someone that you've gotten the privilege of encountering along the way. Is there anyone that comes to mind when I ask that?
Well, I've met several extraordinary people in my life. I had the privilege to meet several. One that comes to mind, though, is a man that I met on my first trip to Iraq, and he was former firefighter in New York City, former Marine, and he had two sons, one a firefighter and one a police officer, and they were both killed on September 11th at the Trade Center. And he was on this trip to Iraq in June of 2003 because he wanted to go and thank the troops for going over there in response to, the difficulties that we were having around the world, and just felt a need to do that. And we became fast friends. His name's John Vigiano, and he introduced me to the world of the New York firefighter, and that has had a profound effect on me. I was deeply changed forever by what happened on September 11th, not just momentarily, but forever, and that's why I continue to go out there and do these things. But meeting the firefighter community in New York City, the first troops, that we lost. I mean, if you look at them, they're the frontline guys on the day of the biggest battle that we've seen since Pearl Harbor, and we lost 343 of them. And I met a lot of those folks in that world. Ended up helping to build a memorial to honor all the fallen first responders that's in Brooklyn, called the Brooklyn Wall of Remembrance, and it's even in that movie. And John introduced me to that world, and he's a remarkable individual. Losing two of his boys, he's taken that tragedy and turned it into it manifested itself in service, and he's been tireless, going down to Walter Reed and visiting our wounded and doing what he can around the country to help spread the word, about giving back to folks. And he's a remarkable guy. But many people over the years that I've met that I could talk about.
That's a great one to choose. That's a perfect one, especially considering the nature of your visit. Gary Sinise, a big pleasure. I hope we get to chat again, and I hope this wasn't too much of a hassle for you, brother.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Very good, man.